I worked on a coffee plantation in Indonesia for 2 days to find out what's causing a drop in coffee supply to Singapore.
Udah kena hujan, dia akan membusuk dan akan jadi kopi.
But while Indonesia's Ministry of Agriculture estimates coffee production to dip this year, the coffee-producing country actually saw a bumper crop in 2022. So even a drop in supply in 2023 means more coffee is still being produced by Indonesia compared to about a decade ago. But yet, I discovered that by July this year, import prices of coffee had increased by 15% compared to 2014. So in this second part, I want to find out what led to Indonesia's spike in supply after 2014. Why, in spite of supply going up, prices aren't coming down. And if the price of my daily cup of coffee will ever come down. I'm here at Lake Toba, a famous tourist attraction in North Sumatra. And while the view is pretty incredible, I'm not here to sightsee. I'm actually here to visit a coffee plantation nearby. You have to admit, Lisa Matthews kind of sticks out here in Indonesia. But for the past 13 years, this soil expert has been tending to her arabica coffee farm in Simalungun Regency of North Sumatra. Arabica production makes up 27% of coffee supply by smallholder farms in Indonesia. Extreme weather patterns of temperature and rainfall have created challenges for farmers who grow Arabica. But yet, Lisa's coffee plantation is thriving.
So Steve, this is the yellow clover that we have growing all over the farm.
Like this guy over
from
here?
Front to back, yeah. Very good for the soil. It creates a healthy biology within the soil by producing nodules on the end. That contains the nitrogen. And that's released into the microbes. The microbes change it into an absorbable form for the trees, and it keeps the leaves healthy.
So this ends up being a natural type of fertilizer?
Yes, it does. What I've been doing today is doing some small cuttings that I will root in a poly bag and then pass on to farmers. One little plant like this will cover a whole hectare.
Wow!
It will naturally spread and proliferate.
And how does this actually benefit the coffee tree?
When you do have hot temperatures and they bake the topsoil, this prevents that from happening. You can see how they grow just on top of the ground, so they're creating shade. So they prevent the soil from drying out. And then the roots that they have absorb lots of moisture, and then they release it later into the soil like a time release.
Okay.
We have a limited amount of weeds because the ground cover from the clover is thick, and it will wrap around the bottom of weeds and just choke them out. Multi-benefits from this one little plant.
But I also noticed that you have all these tall trees towering over the coffee trees.
Their function is to reduce the temperature, to break up the wind, and to feed the soil the nitrogen that the coffee needs. The root system on these trees attracts the type of bacteria that will break down the nitrogen into an absorbable form for the coffee crop.
And how much more productive is a coffee tree that has this kind of shade?
Well, because the temperature is lowered from these trees, they have less stress. They can put their energy into developing the flowers. And the flowers, once they're pollinated, are the fruits. When you harvest them, the weight of the cherries is higher than cherries that are out in full sun.
Heavier cherries lead to a bigger yield for farmers, and they can earn more money. So I noticed some other farmers were growing things like banana, oranges. Don't they serve the same purpose as these guys?
No, I wish it did, but it doesn't. Those crops require as much or more nutrients than coffee. They also take moisture from the soil. They require a lot more moisture than coffee as well.
Apart from the ground covers and shading trees, Lisa also grows flowering plants. Coffee trees on their own don't attract pollinators, which are insects that help transport the male part of the flower to the female part. These lantana flowers attract those insects to her coffee farm.
Bees and other insects carry the pollen to help the flower on the coffee tree become a fruit. Climate change has produced some severe rain patterns, and the heavy, severe rains will affect the natural pollination of the coffee tree.
Okay.
Not all of those flowers will become a coffee cherry if they're not properly pollinated.
Ah, I see. So this helps bring in some support, I guess, to help pollinate the flowers.
When you're planting for pollinators, you also want to consider what other function will this plant have. This one attracts what's called a predator wasp. It is a predator insect that eats the coffee berry borers that will attack the coffee cherries.
There is no coffee variety that is resistant to the coffee berry borer. They grow and breed inside the coffee cherries. As they eat their way in, the fruit reduces in weight, and the severely infected ones drop from the trees, which means they don't ripen and can't be sold. There is a way, though, to salvage some of those coffee cherries that have been infected by the coffee berry borers. I'm going to find out how. My lesson continues early next morning. This time with Lisa's husband, Leo Wiriatjajah. He's been teaching locals how to reduce the risk of infestation from the coffee berry borer.
One of the variables that they can control is fermentation.
Coffee beans are seeds within the cherry. In order to get to the seed, the cherry needs to be processed, and this is when fermentation happens. But there are different ways in which it can be done.
We're teaching and educating our farmers to use this drum for controlled fermentation rather than using the jute bag or the plastic goni bag.
And how is this different and better?
This is better because you can reduce the available oxygen. Because of the lack of oxygen during the fermentation process, if you have any coffee berry borer inside this cherry, it will suffocate them. As you can see, this larva is starting to escape because they're trying to breathe. So farmers could lose up to 30% of their harvest to the pest issue, the coffee berry borer.
Okay. Now
It's less than 4%.
wow.
What Lisa and Leo have just shown me is something they teach local farmers through free workshops. Over the years, there have been many other experts, NGOs and agencies helping farmers improve their agricultural techniques, which could explain the rise in coffee production in the last decade. 2023 is the first time coffee production is estimated to fall in 8 years, but Lisa has some bad news.
I'm afraid there's a weather event that's going to be happening globally this year, 2023, called El Nino. And what that does is create drier, hotter temperatures globally. So coffee production will suffer, it will go down.
Not only that, Indonesia is not only producing coffee, but we're also consuming coffee. Every year, the rate of consumption is getting higher and higher.
Wow.
And that takes away the amount of coffee that we can export.
I heard there's a new variety that's been developed with the potential to help coffee crops survive the tough times ahead. But can consumers tell it apart from the coffee that we are familiar with?
The big difference between these two is actually on the aftertaste. It's a bit rough. Tend to be a bit salty.
Warmer weather and unpredictable rainfall have led to an estimated fall in coffee yield of about 0.6% between 2022 and 2023. It doesn't seem much, but industry players are expecting a further shortage in supply as El Nino hits this year. With prolonged dry weather putting a further strain on coffee production going into 2024, does this spell the end of Indonesia's coffee growth spurt? Well, there could be hope. But to find out, I have to take a super bumpy journey deep in the highlands of Java, the island with the second biggest coffee plantation area in Indonesia.
Nothing preventing us from just going over the site. That's a little bit worrying.
These are arabica seedlings. Arabica is considered superior in taste and are served in cafes and restaurants. On average, a 60-kilogram bag of arabica green beans costs about 3 times the price of the average robusta, the kind of coffee served by our hawkers. The seedlings I'm looking at come from a mother garden in Bondowoso Regency. It's called Mother Garden because this is the birthplace for new and experimental varieties of Arabica coffee. The coffee trees here are grown by the Indonesian Coffee and Cocoa Research Institute, or ICCRI.
This new Arabica variety is called Komasti. It has potential to mitigate the impact of climate change.
In what way?
Komasti is well adapted in the wet and dry seasons, so it's so suitable in every conditions.
And how did you guys design this variety to be more resilient?
Actually, Komasti is composed from 6 genotypes. It's like the accumulation of resistant genes here in this variety.
You take 6 really good genes from other plants and then you put them in here so that if one doesn't do so well, there are still 5. There's always a sort of a backup plan.
Yeah, something like that. The gene that resistant to leaf rust disease.
Leaf rust? Do you mean this one?
Exactly. It means they are resistant to fungus. Climate change impact the winter condition and it causes disease, especially for the fungus.
The fungus on coffee trees, how big a problem is that?
It's so damaging in Indonesia, 70 to 80%.
What?
This year's impending El Nino phenomenon will likely cause prolonged hot and dry weather. Coffee yield could drop further. It sounds like Komasti might be a good variety for farmers to switch to.
But I noticed at the farms that I visited, the old variety, the trees were much taller.
The trees is shorter because it's dwarf coffee plants. More productivity. We can plant around 2,000 until 3,000 plants per hectare. Nah, untuk tipe yang tinggi, kita akan tanam 1.600 tanaman.
But why are you able to grow more Komasti trees versus the normal tree?
The tall Arabica, the branch is longer. Dia harus ditanam dengan jarak yang lebih jauh agar tidak terjadi overlap antara satu cabang dengan cabang yang lainnya. Secara otomatis populasi yang kita tanam lebih sedikit dibandingkan dengan tipe dwarf ini. We can see many internode here.
Yeah, they're very close together. Does it grow more cherries than the normal tree?
Yes.
How much more?
50 to 70%.
Wow, 50 to 70%, that's a lot.
Yes, but it's about the implementing of good agricultural practice.
Right.
We must apply the fertilizer, do like the pruning, apply the shade tree, cleaning the weeds.
Does it need more fertilizer to grow?
Yes.
But that also means it's more expensive, right? Because the fertilizer costs more money.
We will have the more productivity here, right? At this moment, the coffee price is so high, so if we can harvesting more cherries here, and then we will obtain a lot of money.
Are there farmers who have already started growing this new Arabica variety?
Well, at this moment, the big companies buy from us and they distribute this seedling to farmers.
Okay.
This is the part of their sustainability program. Not many farmers buy directly from us yet.
The farmers who have planted these, have any of them reached the harvesting stage yet?
Some of them already harvesting, but many of them is still too young.
Komasti seeds are 50% more expensive than the old variety of Arabica seeds. And farmers will need to buy thousands of them if they want to replace current trees with Komasti.
Will the farmers be willing to spend their money on this?
It is a long investment for the farmers because they must chop down this ancestral tree for this variety. They must see the other farmers first.
Yeah.
If the other farmers already success to grow this variety, and they will follow to grow this variety.
They see others doing well.
Yes,
and they'll
correct.
say, okay, I'll give it a try.
There are currently several demonstration plots planted by farmer groups in North Sumatra, and the research facility is hoping that success from these plots will encourage more farmers to grow the new arabica variety. 27% of the coffee produced by smallholder farmers in Indonesia belongs to the arabica variety.
So this new variety of arabica could be a real game changer. I mean, not only is it more robust, more productive, it can also handle the impact of changing weather patterns better.
Komasti may be hardier than the original varieties, but is it as tasty? So I'm doing a taste test. I've enlisted the help of heavyweights in the industry. Adi Taro Projeka is the first Arabica quality grader instructor in Indonesia. Graders are able to identify the origins of coffee beans and its flavor notes. Lonika Tay was the winner of the Indonesia Cup Tasters Championship last year, where she demonstrated speed, skill and accuracy in distinguishing the different types of coffee. I've given Adi and Lonika each 2 tasting cups of ground Arabica coffee.
How are my pouring skills?
Consistent.
Oh, that's it, consistent. One is the new variety.
The other cup is a standard Arabica that we normally get in cafes. Let's call it the OG, the original. They don't know this, but the cup to their right is Komasti.
So which tastes better?
Definitely the left one. The big difference for me between these two is actually on the aftertaste. This one is clean, it's soft, citrus, dark chocolate, a bit of caramel. This is like more a coffee that makes your day better and nicer. This is like my day-to-day coffee. This one is like have a higher body, concentrated more on the nutty side, more on the hazelnut and a bit of peanut. But the aftertaste is a bit dry, it's a bit rough. Tend to be a bit salty. Morning coffee, I'm gonna choose this. This is like have more punch, big notes, wake me up.
What about you?
I prefer the one on the right, Steve. I personally prefer bolder tasting coffees as opposed to tea-like and more towards sour coffees.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Is this something you would drink every day?
Yep. I would drink this every day, as this is, for me, more suitable for espresso-based drinks. That would be your Americanos, lattes, the one with milk, because you can still taste that boldness from the coffee.
Any guesses which is the old, original, and which is the new?
If I have to guess, because I'm old, I think this is the old one.
Okay. Okay.
I think this one is the old one.
He's right.
All right.
The cup on your right is the new variety.
Okay.
And the other cup is the original.
Adi prefers the OG or original Arabica, but would still opt for the Komasti brew for a morning pick-me-up. Lonika simply prefers the new variety. New varieties like Komasti could help Indonesian coffee farmers battle extreme weather patterns of temperature and rainfall. Now I know what led to Indonesia's decade-long coffee growth spurt, and I'm hopeful for its future. I need to get back to my original mission, finding out what caused the rise in the price of my cup of coffee.
You got to deconstruct the various ingredients involved as well.
I spent 2 weeks in Indonesia, the biggest supplier of coffee to Singapore, and found out that while supply is estimated to fall in 2023, the country had actually seen a rise in production yield over the years. Figures from Indonesia's Ministry of Agriculture shows that even with the dip in 2023, it's still about a 20% increase from the lowest yielding years over the past decade. So why is the cost of my coffee going up? Perhaps the answer lies here. Ya Kun Kaya Toast has over 70 outlets in Singapore. A cup of kopi, which is coffee with condensed milk, used to cost $1.80. But that went up to 2 Singapore dollars last year.
This cup of coffee for $2. How much of that actually is really because of higher coffee bean prices?
You got to deconstruct the various ingredients involved as well: coffee beans, water, milk, sugar. The profit margin from each little cup of coffee has to be put together for your rental, for your labor costs, for medical benefits for the staff, electricity bill. It's about many little things coming together to prop the business up. These things will also continue to creep.
What are the other things that might contribute to a more pricey cup of coffee for us?
And definitely our roaster, and our roaster has its own challenges as well.
Coffee arrives in Singapore as green beans and smells like grass. The roasting process is what turns them into the fragrant dark brown beans we know and love. I'm at the facility of one of the major suppliers of roasted coffee beans to local coffee shops.
As you can see, for the roasting process, it uses a lot of electricity and also gas. Last year, our utility costs actually doubled.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's very volatile right now. Post-COVID, overall manpower cost has increased significantly in Singapore too. There are also increasing prices of the raw ingredients that go through the coffee roasting process.
What are these ingredients we're talking about?
So some of these ingredients that go through includes sugar and margarine. Sugar actually gives it a more caramelized flavors. It gives it its body and sweetness. As for the margarine, it makes the whole coffee more aromatic and also the roasting process a lot smoother as well.
And how much has the cost of these ingredients increased?
So for sugar, from 2021, it has increased about 55%.
Yeah.
Margarine from 2021 has increased about 20%.
Wow, okay. You need to use these ingredients to roast.
We have no choice because we have to add in all these ingredients to still maintain the flavors of how we want our traditional coffee to taste like.
So most likely I'm looking at a more expensive cup of coffee in the future.
Unfortunately, yes.
There's another reason why my coffee prices went up. Global consumption of coffee rose by 16% between 2014 and 2022. And it's projected to further increase by 1.7% this year. The coffee-producing world just cannot keep up. So much so that there's now an estimated shortfall of 7.3 million bags globally. Regardless of price, like many Singaporeans, I still need my daily caffeine fix.
And since the price of coffee is unlikely to fall, I'm going to resort to getting more free cups of coffee here at the office and maybe indulge in just paid coffee once or twice a week. That way I can save some money.